Thank you, Fiona. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's really my pleasure to come back to the HELP University. I really appreciate for their invitation. As the last speaker, I wish my presentation will be clear and short. And the theme of the strategic seminar is Innovative University. For an innovative university, I believe it must respond to the students' mobility and the internationalization of their curriculum. It is also relevant to a very popular topic worldwide as the cross-boundary education. And so my presentation is about the students' mobility and the curriculum internationalization in China. I will highlight it in the four aspects. One is the cross-boundary tertiary education in China, following the recent policies and the institutional practices in China. Also, what we are doing by the CSCSE, my organization. Finally, I would like to offer some comments and suggestions for the future cooperation perspective in China. So first is the cross-boundary tertiary education in China. And according to the OECD portal website, the cross-boundary education in tertiary education sector is involved with the students' mobility, institutional mobility, and the program mobility. And for students' mobility, in the past decades, we found a large scale of students' mobility in the past decade. And also the forms of the mobility also changed in a different ways, like the academic partnerships, jointly run campuses, and other arrangements. And also for the cross-boundary education also provides some tremendous new issues for the policymakers and education stakeholders. It is both faced by the developed countries as well as the developing countries. China has been recognized as the most dynamic market and even the focal point countries for cross-boundary education in the past decade. However, as a developing country, it is always a controversial issue, that is for the renovation as well as the regulation. Innovation ideas have been accepted by the general public in China, including the government policymakers. But in the same time, I believe we have the similar situation with other developing countries, like Malaysia or Southeast Asia countries. That is, in practice, the government have to introduce new and also reinforce the measures of regulations. And that means, to my understanding, the government is trying to put the innovation in the right direction. In the meantime, they wish the open of the education market with control. So for the students' mobility in China is also indicated in a very large scale. Last year, according to the Chinese Ministry of Education statistics, it's about 340,000 students studied overseas. And And in the meantime, we found a large number of Chinese students returned from overseas from different countries. So it's about 190,000 students returned from overseas. And in the past 30 years, over 2 million Chinese students have studied overseas. Less than 1 million have come back. In the meantime, we found increasingly more and more international students coming to China for further studies. And last year, we have about 290,000 overseas students have come studied in China. And for the Chinese government, I think they are committed and also to facilitate two-way flow for students. And also, the Chinese universities have a great interest to have more international students. And for the students' mobility, really, there's three major channels. One is the students applied by themselves to study overseas. And the parents are willing to spend the money to support their kids to study overseas. And also we found a lot of commercial agents are very active to recruit students for commercial purpose. And so in China, we have over several hundred commercial agents involving with the recruiting business. And the third channel is certainly the institutional cooperation, the university students' mobility. And in the past decade, we found increasingly more and more international overseas universities or institutions try to promote their programs in China. And so the Chinese government has introduced a new policy, encourage the Chinese foreign cooperation in running schools or programs. So under this policy, it's over 1,000 international education programs has been introduced to China. As I mentioned to you that the government is trying to open the education market, but with control. That means currently overseas universities cannot set up their independent campuses independently in China. So they have to work with the Chinese education providers. And also for the degree programs and above, should get the permit or approval from the authorities. And we found the applications for the jointly run programs has increased every year. Even the policy trying to control the scale and try to regulate it, the jointly run programs. And recently, the Chinese government has issued the new policy, that is the outline of China's national plan for medium and long-term education reform and development. It is my understanding the new guideline are encouraging the Chinese universities to be more internationalized. And also they have a very encouraging policy, that is a new scheme called the Study in China scheme. So based on the new policy, the government encouraged institutional linkage in faculty and students exchange, credit transfer, and dual degree arrangements. Also build up a curriculum system attracting international students to study in China. For the universities and higher education institutions, the university itself are quite active for the students' exchange programs. Also have some kind of initiative like international curriculum reform. The universities are quite active to work with overseas counterparts to build up some articulation arrangements. And for the, obviously, more and more university students, they also are keen to study abroad through the institutional cooperation. But we have to find that there's some kind of problems for the institutional cooperation. That is, the curriculum system are quite different between China and the overseas universities. And the credits system are also different. It cannot be easily transferable. Definitely, the qualified faculty shortage are also a problem. And in the past 10 years, the Chinese higher education has a dramatic expansion for their recruitment. And currently, we have over 2,000 universities and higher education institutions. And the recruitment, the students' population is around 30 million. And the annual intake of the students to the higher education sector is over 6 million. And maybe 10 years ago, the annual intake was about 1.5 million. So it is a very large increase in the past 10 years. And because of the challenges are facing for overseas institutions recruiting Chinese students by agents, the agents, the government are trying to regulate the agent recruiting business, and they have issued some kind of license. But in the meantime, I don't think it's it is not easy to regulate the agents for recruiting. For many American universities now are facing the tough challenges for the agents' recruitment, because traditionally, to my understanding, many American universities are not get used to use the agents. But now it seems even now they cannot identify whether students have been polished their applications through agents. And certainly for the universities from the UK, Australian, traditionally they are quite experienced to use agents. And so it is a very difficult situation currently for the regulation of the agents. And so obviously the opportunities are for the overseas universities is to work with the Chinese universities for students' mobility. And it is also a good opportunity to set up some kind of curriculum cooperative programs. I myself is coming from a national agency, the government agency called CSCSE, Chinese Service Center for Scholarly Exchange. It's a government agency, and we has been authorized by the MOE, the Ministry of Education, to provide authorized services like the information for students to study overseas, and then we organize the large-scale fairs, international education fairs, CIET, for facilitate the students' mobility. And also we are providing some services for Chinese universities to recruit foreign students. Also, we have also quite active in involving with the quality assurance and qualifications recognition. And the CSSE was authorized by the MOE to verify the overseas qualifications. And in the past 10 years, the CSSE have introduced some overseas education programs. Now we have set up 11 study abroad training centers associated with 11 universities in China. So we have established a national network for training. And since 2003, we have introduced UK, Scottish higher national diploma programs. Last year, we also have set up a new scheme called the International General Education Curriculum. And for the study abroad training centers, we are providing some guidelines and some training programs for language training, for the pre-departure training, as well as some bridging or foundation courses. Currently, about 3,000 students are studying the preparatory programs in China. And for the H&D programs, currently we have 26 universities in China involving with the program. And about 10,000 students are studying the program in the 26 universities. The students finished H&D programs will have the opportunity for further studies in the UK and other countries for additional year to get a top-up bachelor degree. And for the International General Education Curriculum, we designed, it is much more focused for the Chinese university students. We're trying to provide some guidelines, some training, and it's also introducing a quality assurance system, and which is also following the US General Education Curriculum framework. This year, we will have about 4 universities to be involved for the IGECE program. Currently, about 7 US universities has also involved with the cooperation. So I believe in China, the internationalization of education is definitely a popular phenomena. And there's a great demand for curriculum internationalization. It also creates some great opportunities for overseas universities to work with the Chinese universities. And the CSCSE is willing to play a role to facilitate the institutional cooperation for the students' mobility. And that's all my presentation. Thank you very much.